Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2019 Georgia Inclusive Postsecondary Education Parent Webinar Series. My name is Ramatu Muhammad, and I'm going to moderate this webinar. I'm the Family Support Staff for Center for Leadership and Disability. I'm also the Parent Coordinator for the IDEAL program. I am also a parent of 4, and my oldest daughter is living with autism spectrum disorder. Today's webinar is titled Transition Process Within the School System, and McNair is going to present the webinar. She is a parent mentor with Gwinnett County Public School Department of Special Education. A little bit about Jackie is that for the past 13 years, she has strived to provide support, training, and resource information to families of students with disabilities. She works as a parent mentor in the Gwinnett County Public School System, the Special Education Department. She's a 2017 recipient of the Phil Pickens Parent Mentor Leadership Award. Jackie has developed parent workshops that has successfully connected families to community resources, as well as helped them to build bridges with their child's community and school. She has provided insight and information to teachers to support their work with families. With a passion for learning and connecting with local agencies that serve individuals with disability, her collaboration with the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities allowed her to participate in the 2013 Inclusion, Community, and Diversity Summer Institute in Toronto, Canada. Jackie previously served on the board of the Autism Society of America, the Georgia chapter, and on the Regional Advisory Council of the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. As a graduate of the 2016 Gwinnett County Citizens Academy, she received recognition as a community volunteer for various events that are sponsored by the Gwinnett County government's community outreach program. Jackie and her husband, Emery, are proud parents of a 23-year-old daughter and a 26-year-old son. She and her family reside in Gwinnett County. Before we start the webinar, here are a few things to note. Everyone except the presenter will be muted during the presentation. While the presentation is going on, you may wish to drop any question in the question bar below, and we will be answering all questions at the end of the presentation. If you can't type your question, use the raise your hand option and we will get to you at the end and unmute you to verbally ask your question. Jackie, you can start.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here to share something that I'm very passionate about, and that's planning for our children to transition out of school. As Ramatu said, I have a daughter who will soon be 24, actually, in July. She lives with autism also, and she has been challenged with illness, with her autism, being nonverbal. So it's taken a lot of planning for a lot of years to help her to have a successful life out of school. And she is enjoying her time out of school, trust me. So I've been asked today to come and talk to you about the transition process within the school system. This will be not as in-depth as I would like for it to be, because there is so much to learn about transitioning out of school. There's so many things that we have to think about and plan for. We have to do so many things way up front before our kids get to the age where they transition out. But I'm going to do my best to just share some things that might give you some insight to help you get started. So transition planning, for me, that was an odd sound when I first heard that word. So I don't know how you feel about it, but I was not sure what they meant in school when they asked me about what do you see Kendra doing when she gets out of school. That's my daughter's name. But the process of planning for transition, schools usually help families to get that process started, to plan for an adult once they leave high school. And planning can involve a lot of things. It's usually involved around creating goals to support what that student wants to do once they get out of school. So that could mean working on work skills, teaching them how to work on a job, to compete with their peers in the outside world. It could be helping them create social interactions, because a lot of our children who live with special needs, they have a hard time making friends and keeping friends and knowing the proper way to act with friends and how to interact and to share and to make friends. It could also include helping them with post-secondary education, what they want to do as far as further education once they leave school. And also, a lot of them really don't want to live with us forever. So we have to help them with learning how to be as independent as they can, living in their community, maybe even in your home, but still with their independent skills. So when should transition planning start taking place? We actually should start thinking about it the minute that we know our children will have an IEP, an individual education plan. Because what we're thinking about, what that IEP really is about once they leave school. It's about the end game. What does it look like once they leave school? So it's hard for us to think about that when our children are very small. My daughter was diagnosed with autism before she reached the age of 3. So she entered school at 3. And it was hard to think about that IEP was really planning for her life out of school. But when you think about transition, think about what's going to happen once they leave school, once all those supports they get in school end. What does that look like? What does the outside world look like? What do they want? What kinds of things will they need? So an IEP really should be based on that. The IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, it mandates that all students with IEPs receive help to plan for appropriate transition goals and services. That word appropriate, I highlighted just because what's appropriate for my daughter may not be appropriate for your child. So we want to think about what is appropriate, what can my child do? You want to think about what are their strengths, what are their needs, what kinds of things do they seem to enjoy, what makes them happy, what puts a smile on their face. What do they talk about? What do you see them doing a lot that they enjoy? Whether it's cleaning, whether it's writing, whether it's reading, repairing something, what kinds of skills do they have already that they really enjoy and they talk about wanting to do? You know, a lot of times with our children, we talk about I do have a son too who is 26, and he's able to talk, and he's been talking forever about what he wanted to be, what kinds of things he wanted to do when he left school. And it changed. It changes every year almost until he left school. So they will change. Some of the things they want to do is just maybe something they think about for a while. But when you see your child really enjoying a particular skill, a particular type of work, take note of that, because that may be the direction that they want to go once they leave school. And IDEA, it requires that transition planning begin by the time an individual is 16 years old. If your child is being schooled in Gwinnett County or surrounding counties, it normally starts around 14. Once that child gets ready to go on to middle school, your teacher may sit down with you and ask you as a parent, where do you see your child when they leave school? So be ready for that question, be ready to think about that, to talk about it, to have some ideas, because it's honestly, teachers cannot lead your child into any particular field. You have to help them decide where they want to go. Just like they don't do it with our typical children. They don't tell them this is what you're going to do once you leave school. They also don't do it for a child with special needs. So it's up to us to talk with our children, to be ready to talk to the schools about what type of plan that we want to plan for when our children leave school. So you might be asking, how can schools promote successful transitions? Well, one of the ways is to initiate the talk, to call you in and start talking about where do you see, I'm just going to use Kendra because that's my daughter. Where do you see Kendra, Jackie, when she leaves school? What do you see her doing? What types of things that she wants to do? And that's how the conversation gets started. They start writing up ideas about determining what those academic needs might be around that. So had I said that Kendra wants to be in the inclusive college program, then we would have started talking about, well, okay, let's look at her academics. What does she need to know? What would she need to learn in the next years before she leaves school in order to be prepared for that? So you want to talk to your child. You want to know what they are interested in. Also, by the age of 14, you can start preparing your child to also participate in his or her IEP meeting so that they too can be there to discuss that and to talk about that. And that's really a good social skill to learn. It's also helping them to learn to be self-advocates, to start speaking up for themselves, to tell what kinds of things to their teachers and the people that help them during the day, what kinds of things they're interested in. The school also may start doing some assessments to evaluate what the needs are, what kind of vocational needs, what job skills do they already have. If they were to go out and seek a job, what kinds of things could they take to a job already? What do they need? Do they need some more work skills? And a lot of times our children with special needs will start doing work skills around school. They take them out in the community because they have to try to determine what are they good at, what do they need a little more assistance with. Independent living is very important to teach a person how to take care of their own bodies, how to bathe right, how to feed themselves correctly, how to go to the bathroom on their own if they can, whatever it takes to live, what you would do yourself, those type skills. Some of our children don't automatically just know how to do those things. So school may involve teaching some of the functional skills, like even how to operate a vacuum cleaner, how to wash dishes, how to put dishes away, how to clean a garage, how to wash a car. It could be whatever type skills that that student is interested in. We may have to help them to develop those skills. And community experience. So to start letting students learn about volunteer work, to go out and offer help and to give back to the community. There are a lot of opportunities in Gwinnett County, so you can look for ways to help your child learn how to give back with the skills they do have, whether it be if they're good at greeting people, at smiling, maybe they can offer their help at functions that are in your community where people need someone to just to greet the crowd that's coming in or to take up tickets, things like that. Those are really good skills to start working on when you're in school while the child is still in school. Schools also provide counseling. A student can go and sit down with a school counselor and talk about their feelings about what they want to do when they leave school, what kinds of things they are afraid of, or what kind of things they think might be roadblocks. You can ask counselors to sit down with them to talk about those type things, and to just try to help the student figure out, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? They can help them identify vocational interests. Sometimes they may have an interest they don't even know that they have, and you could sit down and talk with someone and kind of nail it down to one or two things that they want to do and give their energy to. They also are going to look at academic support, supporting that student, helping that student connect to programs and services like the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Services that are in Georgia, where a student can go and you can start as early as age 14 to start talking with them about the needs of that student, what type of help would they need to be in a job, to keep a job, and also what kind of skills they need if they go off to school, what that could look like too, what kind of supports that they could give them for that. Schools are responsible to report progress of the student to the parent. So they'll let the parent, they should be in contact with the parent, I think it's at least twice a year, to let the parent know what kind of progress that student is making on the goals that you've set during the IEP meeting. And that is where the IEP, transition IEP will start at the age of 14 in Georgia. And you'll start setting goals and writing down goals of what this student will be working on. That gives you all the way to 4 years, and if that student stays in longer, it could give you up to 7 years of working on these skills. But it starts at age 14. But the progress should be reported to you, and you should come back even then and sometimes have to tweak what's being done, change the goals, change the direction, but it gives a little bit of space anyway to talk about those type things and plan for those things before that student ages out of school. So now what can we do as parents to help our children have successful transitions? Support their skills. One of the things is start early teaching your child home skills, how to make their beds, how to clean up, how to take care of themselves, because they go off to school, that'll be one of the things that'll be expected. If they live in a dorm, they're totally responsible for keeping it clean, for sharing space with others, for having proper manners around others. So to start at home, these type of activities, sometimes it can be a little difficult, but if you'll start helping them learn to make their beds, to keep their bathrooms clean, to sweep their floors, to put their clothes away, to take their baths, clean themselves, clean their bodies, and just working in the field I've been working in. That is one of the things I've heard a lot about, that some of the students that have gone off to college, it's been a little hard to get them sometimes to take care of their body needs. So that's a really big one. And I would say start early to try to teach your child the importance of keeping clean, of smelling nice when you're around other people so that you won't offend others, and of just knowing their spaces, how to take care of your space, not to invade someone else's space, and just how to learn how to do chores and not mind doing chores, because that would be a biggie once you leave home. And I'm sure we all already do this, discuss future plans with our children. We're always asking, parents are always saying, what would you like to be when you grow up? So even with our children with special needs, I've been guilty sometimes of not assuming that my daughter wanted anything for the future because, it was a little difficult helping her get through school itself. But don't take for granted that they don't want to sit and talk to you about those plans. And I would say encourage them, never say that you won't be able to do that, you can't do that. Always try to, even if you have to steer them to something in a way that they don't know you're steering them to something else, always be open to encouraging them and to saying, wow, I think you'd be great at that. And let's figure out how you can get there. And do encourage them and talk about future plans. If you notice that your child steers towards certain things a lot, my daughter does a lot of drawing and painting when she's to herself. And so now she's doing even more of that. She actually has an art display at a community center because I figured out that that's something she really loves, she enjoys doing. So if you notice that about your child, that they're constantly, for us, it almost seems like they're obsessing with it, but even an obsession sometimes can become a life skill and a job. So do notice that and understand what that child's needs are, what your child's needs are. Do they need someone to be near them at all times? Will they need that type of support? Do they need to know who is the person that I will go to if I need something? Do they need help with moving around? Do they have mobile issues? But whatever that child's needs and skills and interests are, you as a parent should understand them even better than anyone else because you see them so much. And so you know what type of things you do at home. You know what keeps you up at night. So you know the things that they need. That's really easy to figure out. Sometimes their skills are a little harder to figure out. If someone were to ask us sometime, what is your child really good at? It's a little hard sometimes to think about that because we get so overwhelmed in the day-to-day caring for them that I think as parents sometimes, even teachers may know what those skills are. But it's a little bit hard sometimes for us to really hone in on the skill. And there are a lot of things that we may not think of as skills, and they're really skills. So if you have someone that obsesses with being on the computer or with playing games on the computer or with doing something that's technical, that's definitely a job skill. If their interest is stacking things in order or putting colors, matching colors, those are still skills. That's skills. They could use that later as something for a skill. And what kind of things do they show interest in? Well, you may have to help them find their interests. You may have to take them out and let them see people working, let them see people doing things to figure out what things would they be interested in, because even us, as we age and get older, our interests change. You may be interested in one thing one year, and next year your interests may change altogether, and you want to go another whole different path. So work on those type skills early, trying to figure out, well, what interests do they have? And if they seem to have none, which sometimes seems to be an issue with them too, they do have interests. We just have to get them out, let them try different things to see what would their interests be. And it could be a number of things. That is like unlimited. Interest can be unlimited. So never stop trying to help your child figure out what would they be interested in, what motivates them to want to get up and do something. And promoting social and community involvement, we talked about it earlier, but that's very important, and that will be very important. Social skills are almost number one when you get out in the world, and especially for our children who have maybe some challenges, um, to teach them socially what's proper, what's improper, how to speak, how to answer, how to say thank you, to respect people's space, not to get too close to someone. All those type skills can be skills that once they're adults out in the world, and maybe you won't be the one standing there with them, maybe it'll be someone else, or maybe no one will be right over them. But for them to know proper etiquette as far as socially, and how to go up and speak, and how to say hello, and how to introduce themselves, how to make friends. And even if our children are not verbal, they don't speak verbally, we can use assistive technology to have them introduce themselves, tell their names, ask how are you doing. And that should be one of our goals. I don't care where we're going out in the community. We should always make it a goal to have someone in the community know their name, know who they are. That's also a safety mechanism. The more the community knows who they are, the better for them and better for everyone. So look for community involvement opportunities, and they're all around in Metro Atlanta. There's so many things that we can do and places we can go to take our children. I was just in the grocery store yesterday, and I noticed a young man using his assistive technology shopping with this young lady, and it made me feel comfortable as a mother to see someone similar to my daughter being able to do what everyone else is doing, and just to be a part of that community. So think about things like that. Don't hide them, don't protect them, don't try to keep them away from certain things just because it may be uncomfortable, but let people get to know them and let them get to know people around them, because that'll be a useful skill once they age out of school. And I'm sure if you're thinking about transition, you already become a productive member of your IEP team. And now that doesn't mean that you go in and you tell everybody what they're going to do. It means that as a team member, you're sitting and you're listening, you're learning, you're trying to see it from other people's points. You're trying to learn as much as you can about the way the school system and the academic setting affects your child. And you're also there to tell them about what you know about your child, what you see at home. Sometimes, especially when you're talking about transition, you know things that they're doing at home that maybe they're not having the opportunity to do in their school system. So if you share those kind of ideas, even if it's not exactly what you would like to see them do or exactly what you're trying to tell them, there may be something in the school system that you can do to use that skill to build on it. And it may not be, like I say, in the same setting, but do go into the meeting ready to share information that would be productive and that would help and might help your child, and also to listen, to ask questions, and to learn as much as you can about what this transition process is. Because what you are planning for when you're talking about transition, you're talking about the day that the yellow bus stops and doesn't come to your home anymore to pick your child up. And trust me, that's a pretty scary time in life when you know that it's all on you then, and it's all on what they want to do and what they plan for. So the earlier you plan, the earlier you start making plans to help them accomplish certain goals, the better off they'll be when it's time to leave school and to go out into the adult world. And it's very important for us as parents to understand what that age of majority means. An age of majority is when a child reaches the age of 18. That means that he or she is no longer considered a child. They're an adult. And at that point, all their rights go to them. They can say what they want to do. They can say, I don't want my mother in my IEP meeting, and that means you can't come in. They have their own rights then, and that's regardless of the disability, regardless of their range of needs. It doesn't matter. Even my child who doesn't speak with words, she could push me out of the door, and they could take that as, okay, she doesn't want her mother in here. At 18, she has that right. So read up on age of majority, learn about it, what it means for you, what it means for your child. And it's up to you if you want to consider guardianship, or now I think there's an alternative that we're looking at in Georgia too, to guardianship, where you don't take away all their rights as an adult, but you still have some say-so about some things. But do that long before the age of 18, because there are a lot of parents that wait to that age of 18 and they haven't done anything. And nobody really necessarily has to consider what we want or what we think after that. And it can cause a lot of issues. So, and that's not just in school, that's in the world. If you think about if your child like mine has some medical issues, doctors don't have to talk to you. They don't have to consider what you're saying. If a surgery is needed, they don't have to ask you what you think about that. It's all up to that person as an adult at age 18. So do study about the age of majority. There's a lot of information out on the internet. You can just Google age of majority. And also you can Google a lot about guardianship. There are a lot of different agencies that offer information about that. But I would say do that well in advance. Don't wait until they turn 18 to figure out, okay, what do we do now? And so if your child is interested in being included in inclusive post-secondary education, so what are some of the things that he or she should know before they delve off into that? One of the things is help them develop their self-advocacy skills. So if you figure your child, especially I would say if they've never spent the night out away from home, give them that opportunity, because that is going to be a requirement once they go off to school, that they may not necessarily be coming home every day. So if they have to stay in a dorm, let them feel what that might feel like before they get to that point. I'm not sure, I don't know a whole lot about how the colleges deal with that once they're there, but I would not want my daughter's first night away from home to be her first night in school if she's never done it, and she might be afraid of that and being away from me. So while they're in high school and they're growing up through middle school and high school, I would say look at opportunities where they might have the experience of being away from you at night. And I promise you, if you're afraid of it, you'll be surprised how much they enjoy it. They really do. They enjoy getting away from us. They enjoy showing you that they can be with other people and have fun, that they can make friends. And I think it makes coming back home a little more interesting. It's no different from our kids who are typical. I think they have those very same desires. We just get so used to taking care of them and doing and supporting them. We think nobody can do it better than mama or better than dad. But there are people out there to support them in those. And so I would say find opportunities where they won't be home every night for the next 5 years. They'll get opportunity to spend the night out somewhere. And so then if that is something that they're afraid of, then you can work with trying to help them overcome those fears. For me, the first time I did it with my daughter, I was very frightened. I cried, afraid to leave her. She was not that afraid, I don't think, but I was. And now it's been about 7 years, and it's so much easier for her. It's so much easier for me. We enjoy being away for a few days and then coming back together. You'll be surprised. So I would say start that because there's no sense in thinking about them going off to do something that they've never even had the opportunity to do before that. So give them those type opportunities, and also teach them, help them learn about the different colleges, even if it's not the colleges that they'll be attending. Let them go and visit colleges. They have open house days. Colleges love for people to come and do tours and see what they do. So I would say take them on college campuses and let them look at other students and see other students working in classrooms and learn about what the entrance requirements would be for a student with special needs. What would they need to do? What would they need to accomplish? Where would they receive help if they needed accommodations in school? What would that look like? What kinds of things could the college offer them? And it may be certain things like they may just need someone to guide them, like if they need to get around the school, it may be someone show them how to figure out if they get lost to class, who would I go to? Who would I call to let them know I'm lost? If you go to a class and nobody's in that classroom, then what do I do next? Where would I go? Just to keep them from panicking, those type things like that. And what kind of accommodations as far as learning would they receive in testing? What would that look like? Who would I go to if I needed some tutoring? All of that type information that a typical student would want to know. I would think that it would help your student a lot if you let them go and see. And even taking them to certain job sites to let them see what happens after you leave school. What does this learning in class look like once I leave the classroom? What type of work could this be? I think seeing people working with their hands and doing things could help a lot, help your child figure out what their interests are, what their skill levels are, and what more skills do they need to do what that person's doing. Um, what type of abilities do they already have? If they wanted to go out today and compete with their peers for a job, what would that look like? How would they do that? Who would they talk to? Who do they ask for when they walk in the building? How do they fill an application out? To give them all those type of experiences early in life, I think would be great before they transition out of school, to start a lot of that type practice even now. We also have to teach them how to learn how to relate to the customers sometimes that come into businesses, how to speak to them, how not to say inappropriate things to them, how not to interrupt their conversations, not to correct them, all those type things that could, for some of our children who are quite honest and don't mind telling people the way they see things sometimes, we may have to teach them the appropriate skills that sometimes you don't say anything, you keep your mouth buttoned. I have friends who have older children who have gone out into the world to work, and those have been some of the challenges working out in employment. It's just sometimes not knowing when to leave a customer alone or when to help a customer. So to start some of that practice early, even in middle school, would be great. It gives them years of helping develop that person and help them develop those social skills that are needed. And then again, colleges also offer access to counseling and career services to talk with the student about, what do you want to do once you leave here? What is your objective? Why are you here? What is this leading to? What type of work do you want to do once you leave here? So take advantage of all those type things and contact. You can go online and contact colleges just to see. And I do know that the IFSEP SEC program also can help you with some of that. So look on their website also to see what they say about counseling and career services and how to help a student with that. And so now that's pretty much what I was going to talk about. And these are some of the resources where you can find a lot of the information that I really gave you a really short information about. But the Family Guide to Transition Planning for Students with Disabilities has a ton of really good information in it to guide you about how to help your student plan for it when they age out of school. And the Georgia Inclusive Postsecondary Education Consortium, that website, who is sponsoring this PowerPoint presentation, they have tons of information on there relating to parents, the IEP, to students once they go to school, those type things. So make sure you check out their website. The Georgia Department of Education also has information about transition. You can also find information about testing, those type things if you're interested in. Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency, they offer all sorts of supports to people from ages 21 and up. You can, well, 14 actually, and almost to 80, I think. Job skills training, teaching you how to live out on your own, support in college, just a ton of different supports. So go on that website and study that website and contact them long before you feel like your child might need them. The earlier you do a lot of this research, the better off they'll be when it's time to transition. Because some things take years to develop, takes years to create, it takes years sometimes for our children to even learn a skill. So I would say the earlier, the better. So it's never too early to get started thinking about transition. The Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, that's a great state resource. But if your child needs funding for certain things, especially like my daughter, she does need a lot of supports in the community, in our home, and she is supported by a waiver that is sponsored by the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. So do go on that website also. This is a lot of resources, a lot of studying that you'll have to do, and it can get frustrating. I would just say take one at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. If your child is not 18 or 21 and about to leave school, you have a little time. So just get started on it, though. I actually started a lot of this type training when my daughter was probably about 3 or 5 when she was first diagnosed. just because I was too afraid to wait until she was there and needed it. Parent to Parent of Georgia is a state agency that can just offer tons of supports and information. They do keep the information for all around the state. So if you're looking for anything there, if you're looking for doctors, if you're looking for dentists, for therapists, Parent to Parent of Georgia is a great site to look up that type of information. They do offer trainings. They offer parent support groups. So look at the Parent to Parent site also. And the Georgia Parent Mentor Partnership is what I'm a part of, that I've been blessed to do this work for 13 years, almost 14. And it's just parents like me and you who have children with special needs that we work across the state and school systems to help support the parents who have children with special needs. And we usually can offer help with, if you want to talk about transition planning or waivers or Medicaid, Social Security, the IEP questions. Just so we try to be anything and everything that we needed when our children were growing up. So please take a moment to look at that website to see if your county happens to have a parent mentor. And there are a lot of parent mentors across Georgia. There are over 100 and something now. So you're more than likely, if you're anywhere near the metro, you will have a parent mentor in your school system. And so pretty much that's all I had today. And I think Ms. Mohammed might open it up for questions now.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Jackie, for a very insightful presentation. So it is now time for us to answer questions. If you have any questions, feel free to type it in the Dropbox. We currently have nothing, but it's open. So get them coming. We're here. While you're trying to type questions, if you have any, I would like to tell you in the next 2 weeks, the next webinar we're going to have is on inclusive community. It's going to be presented by Stacy Ramirez. She is the director, Georgia chapter, state director of the ACT Georgia. So do sign up if you need information about how to help our kids kind of blend or learn how to live in an inclusive community. Okay, so we have a question. Is this PowerPoint available to be downloaded for reference? Yes. So we're going to upload the PowerPoint presentation and the recording of this webinar at the Georgia Inclusive Postsecondary Education Consortium website. And when you go to the website, you go to the tab that says resources. Under resources, there's webinars. Then under webinars, we have the 2019 GAPSEC parent webinar series. And when you tap on that, you would see the one we had last week is already up. The recording should be up within, give and take, within 7 days, but the PowerPoint would be uploaded within the next hour after the presentation. PTA district meeting to speak to our parents. So that is up to Jackie. Jackie, she asked, can I invite you to my PTA district meeting to speak to our parents? Do you cross counties, or how do you do it?
You know, I don't like to turn parents away just because I know how hard it can be. So yeah, you can get in touch with me and look me up on the Parent Mentors website. My email address in the county is there. So just contact me and I'll be more than happy if I can arrange it in my schedule. So yes.
Okay. And the other thing is you can also refer parents to the GAPSEC website. That's the Georgia Inclusive Postsecondary Education Consortium website, where this recording will be available for them to access it whenever they want to. And I'm going to send a follow-up email after tomorrow. You should receive an email, and it has the information about the website, and it also has a short survey. Okay, so the next question is, young adults with waiver contact with GV, I think you wanted to say GVRA, has been a big run around, says cannot receive both. Young adult with waiver? That's the now comp waiver?
It doesn't sound like a question. It sounds like a statement. It's in a young adult with a waiver. Mm-hmm. Contact with GV, Georgia Voc Rehab, has been a big runaround. cannot receive both. That, as far as I understand, is not true. My daughter does have a waiver. She also is in contact with GVRA to receive some employment. Where actually they call it this discovery program to discover what type things can she be employed in. So I'm not sure if you're in this county or a different county. They are hard to contact. It's hard to get the process going. But I would say just keep trying. If you haven't been in contact with any person, try to talk with a person there. You may even have to go into an office. But the waiver should not stop a person from receiving some supports through GVR.
Yes, and then we have upcoming webinars in regarding to this question. We're going to have staff of GVRA explain their process, and I would bring this up to them just because you're having challenges. And then we have another webinar coming up by Sally Atwell. It's called the Benefits Navigator, and she also compares what you're benefiting from, what can you get when you have a certain type of waiver. So I will take a note to ask both presenters if you can sign up for them. That would be great to be part of that, so that you can directly ask GVRA staff on this question, and also the expert on the benefits, that's for those that have waivers, is going to also talk about that. Our next question is, where can parents learn about the different diploma options? So the Georgia Inclusive Postsecondary Education Consortium website, which is GAIPSEC.org website, has all the available colleges that currently run inclusive postsecondary education program. But I would like to say this just to clarify, because you mentioned diploma options. The inclusive postsecondary education colleges are not diploma awarding. They are certificate awarding programs, but it's all to end up in, most likely, in employment. We're seeing a higher rate of employment of our kids with special needs after such programs. So some colleges would let them graduate with a certificate called like an employment awarding kind of certificate, so that once they have this certificate, it lets them be able to be employable. Another thing is, most of these colleges work with the students while in the program, starting internships and trying to create this connection with already the workforce, so that by the time they graduate, it's a smooth transition for them to get employed. I hope I answered your question, but the other thing is the website has tons of information about all the colleges. Not all colleges offer the same thing. Some have specific courses you have to take, like the Georgia State University program, where I currently am the parent coordinator there. We deal with digital and media and arts, but colleges like Georgia Tech lets the student choose any program, any course within the school that is offered by the school. So you could major in, or you get a certificate in any course you want to, unlike some colleges that fine-tune it to just a specific type of certificate. Any more questions? Okay, yeah. So somebody said Gwinnett DeKalb.
I have a question.
Okay. Maria Staples, can I invite? Okay. So.
Okay, Miss Staples, and yes. I didn't mean to say your name, but yes, you're from Gwinnett. Yes, just contact me about the PTA. I'm more than happy to do that.
And then someone asked if you could go to DeKalb.
And DeKalb, I think you're the one that said something about the Georgia Vote Rehab.
And the waiver.
And the waiver. I would say go into that office and talk to someone if you feel like you're getting the runaround. But it is a hard process. It doesn't happen overnight. But I know my daughter does have a waiver, and she is receiving some support. So I don't know that to be true, that they can't do both of them. It depends on the needs of the person. Just similar to the IEP in school, it depends on what that person's needs. It also should depend on that also.
Okay. And then I wanted to add a point for the person that has the question on the waiver and the voc rehab. There is an office called the Georgia Advocacy Office. They offer support to parents in navigating the waivers, like the services that parents need. So they kind of would help you clarify. But the person presenting on the benefits navigator would also have a lot of information. Another question is, do we get GVRA involved in the IEP/transition process?
How do we do it?
Okay, how do we get
it? Used to be schools used to ask them in. But parents, you can actually start the GVRA process yourself by going into the office or calling them and making an appointment by the time your child is 14. If you know that you're interested in them doing some assessments to see where your child stands as far as their work needs, their work skills, you can now go and contact them by the time that person is age 14. So you don't have to wait for a school to get involved in that transition process. You can start that process yourself. And you could probably speak with your school system too about how they bring them in, how they invite them to IEP meetings, if that's what you're asking. That type thing I would say contact your school about. But you don't have to wait for the school to get the GVRAs started.
Oh, nice. Somebody says, thank you for the wonderful webinar. Another question. Okay, thank you. I will. That's Maria. Thank you. I will. Great presentation. Thank you for the positive feedback. Any more questions? Yeah, okay. Okay, so Ms. Green says, I've reached out to GVRA, but I'm generally referred back to the point of contact at the school. So there is still some confusion about the process, which may vary by county.
And you're right, it may vary by county. I would say do get on the webinars that are upcoming that you said GVRA
yes,
was
GVRA. We're going to have two presenters.
I would definitely be on that one to ask those questions. It's like everything else in the state. Sometimes different places are a little slow getting caught up with the processes. So I can't speak county for county, but I would say do plan to be on that webinar so you can ask personally the people who are doing the presentation about that. But you also can go into their offices, and I don't know if you've gone into their office. To me, phone calls sometimes don't get what you're looking for. So going in and letting them know what you're in there for may make a difference. But I won't be working this summer, so if you were to email me at the email address on the Parent Mentor site, I wouldn't probably answer it. But if you have a question about it and I think I might be able to help you or lead you to someone, I'll be more than happy to.
You can send emails to me if you have more questions for Jackie, and I would reach out to her and respond back to you. You have my email. It's in the flyer. It's R as in Robert, then MUHAMMAD14@gsu.edu. It's available on the flyer. Any more questions? Keep them coming.
I do want to say someone had a question earlier about how does a person find out about the different type diplomas. The school system should be able to explain what the different diploma options are for a student. And we also have scheduled someone to talk about that in our county with parents to explain. We've done it for several years. One of our coordinators in our special ed department comes and explains the different options, what they mean, and what they offer and what they don't to students. So, I think it was explained earlier though that in order for a student to go to inclusive colleges, they don't necessarily need a regular ed diploma. I think parents, we worried about that so much in past years. My daughter actually was given what looks like a regular diploma when she left school, but she left when she was 21. She still needs a lot of supports. She's not a student that would go off to college. She's never even shown an interest in academics. Actually, she's totally happy being out in the world now, doing her thing. But her life is different. She's not a student that would have probably received too much, had too much interest in inclusive settings like that. but she still has that diploma, and she is starting to do job discovery, so she can work. She can do things. So sometimes we got to think like that about our children, that if this is not possible, then what else is? And work on those things that are possible and find out where the answers, where I go to get this. And like I said, start early. And the one good thing that you have that I didn't have when she was growing up, you have Google. So you can trust some of the stuff you find on Google, but there are a lot of resources in Georgia that you can, if you just have the question in your head, type it in and see what you come up with, and you may be surprised that it'll lead you to agencies or to other people that may have answers that can help you. But don't be discouraged if they aren't getting a regular ed diploma. That doesn't mean that they won't have a future.
Yes, and in regarding to that question also, I would like to add that the different options, like some of our kids could go to regular college and graduate in a 4-year degree program with supports. So, and some would go into the Inclusive Postsecondary Education program, and some would not. So for the Inclusive Postsecondary Education program, when you visit the GABSEP website and see the different colleges, they have links to all the colleges, and you could look up admission requirements if you're thinking of that, so that you can start preparing early as to what does my child need to be able to get into this program if you think they have interest in that type of program, just for informational purposes. But it's not all students that go into the Inclusive Postsecondary program. Some go to a regular college and would graduate like typical pairs, but with some supports. Some would need more supports. So it all depends. Every child is different, and every child's needs or interests are different.
Mm-hmm. And there's a parent years back that contacted me about her daughter's needs, and she was in typical classes in college. She could do the work, but her body didn't cooperate with her, so she needed a lot of support as far as being able to write, to move her wheelchair around the campus. And her mother actually did that until Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation finished their process, and then they offered her someone to do that for her. So as you said, there are supports for our students to participate in regular college settings also.
So the next webinar is going to come up in 2 weeks. I think it's let me not think. It's on July 10th, and it's going to be same time at noon, and it's going to be on inclusive community. As I said, it's going to be presented by Stacy Ramirez. She's the state director of the ARC, Georgia. There's going to be a lot of information on how to include our kids in communities around us. Any more questions? We're coming towards to the end of the time for the webinar. Do look out, please, for my email. It's going to be sent out tomorrow. It's going to be an email thanking you for attending, but it also would have the link telling you where to find the recording and presentation. And it's also going to give you, tell you information of how to get the PowerPoint of the presentation. And also it's going to have a link to a short survey. It's not going to take up to 3 minutes. It's just a 2-page survey just to tell us what we're doing or what more you need from us, because this is just the beginning. We're going to still have more and more webinars. We're out for parents. We have our back. So do look out for that email from me tomorrow. And just again, if anybody has any more questions, if not, then we're going to end this webinar in about a minute. So does anyone have oh yes, okay, it's great, thanks. Okay, then thank you for joining our webinar, and we do hope you have gained a lot from the presentation. Have a blessed day. Thank you, Ms. Jackie. Any last words?
No, just keep planning, parents. I mean, we have to start early and look for the gifts that your children bring to you, and think about those more than you do those things that keep us up at night. And work on them and do what you're doing now and network and learn all you can learn. Attend every training you can get your hands on, because every little tidbit you learn, you'd be amazed how much it helps. And if it doesn't help your child, it may help another parent's child. So it's been my honor to sit here and talk with you about the little that I know about transition planning. And I hope that something we said today helped you, and I wish you well along your journey.
Thank you. Okay, if you want to keep this meeting open. Let me just pause it.